Well, we're still at Depot Days.
We sure are.
And we want to finish up by showing you guys a couple of modular railroads that showed up at the Depot Days in Cheyenne. They came all the way up from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
They sure did.
They took that left, and passed Bugs Bunny because he was going too slow. And, well, he was moving along there. Okay. Anyway, they passed Bugs Bunny. And anyway, here they are at Cheyenne. Long trip for them. Two, though, of the most beautiful modular railroads.
Just
amazing
neat.
Clubs, amazing railroads, and some really fun people at the same time. The New Mexico Rail Runners with their N-scale railroad, which includes Disneyland.
My favorite. That was
that was just
fun.
really cool, and a really nice working model of the Cheyenne shops.
Yes.
So I think that's why they wanted to bring it to Cheyenne, because
Absolutely.
they modeled Cheyenne. And then the other group is the New Mexico Narrow Gauge Club.
Right.
And they model in HON3. And we saw those guys at the Narrow Gauge Convention. So if you saw the piece on the Narrow Gauge Convention. But we want to return to that because A, they came back, and B, there's a few things here that weren't there at the Narrow Gauge, because that's how modular railroads are. They change out.
They
Every
change
time you
it.
see them, they're different.
That's good.
So check this out. It's really cool. Well, this was one of the most incredible things at the show.
I'll say it was.
N-track modules, an N-scale recreation of the original Cheyenne shops right here in Cheyenne. This is what it looked like back when it was being used, and you can see it's a pretty accurate recreation.
That's just incredible. Wow.
Of what it once was. It was a lot bigger than it is now, and yet even now it's capable of servicing these huge locomotives. Here we see the Challenger,
Right.
pulled out of service just a few years ago, and now awaiting restoration. And here we see 4014, the big boy,
Boy.
which is being rebuilt right here in Cheyenne as well. But this N-scale model of the whole thing, as I say, pretty darn accurate.
Yeah.
And there's the back shops. Half of this building remains. And the roundhouse and just one of these pie wedges, the one closest to us right now, still remains. Here's the coaling and fueling tracks and facilities, all gone now. But what an incredible facility this once was. You can see how they've extended a lot of the roundhouse stalls to accommodate the huge locomotives. This is what's so impressive about N-scale, isn't it?
It is.
God, look at 40-foot cars, just strings and strings of those, and full-size passenger cars. Just looks so amazing. Now here we see the original Cheyenne Depot. Of course, this is still completely intact. It's where the train show's going on.
It sure is.
And it's the UP Museum now. But this is what it looked like back when it was running as a train station. This is footage from 2 years ago.
Check out the snow.
It was June, and we'd been snowed in Wyoming for 2 days. Only Wyoming.
Yes.
But because it's the state capital, it's always had this really impressive train station. The railroad arrived here in 1867 when they were building the Transcontinental Railroad. And since it's not being used as a train station anymore, UP is using it as the official Union Pacific Museum.
One thing that's impressive about N-scale is you can have a setup this size, but it doesn't take up a lot of space.
Really, I mean, if you think about what it would take to do a modular setup like this, the entire Cheyenne shops, even just in HO scale, it'd be the size of a house.
It would.
But here it is just as several modules, N-track modules, and it's big, but it's manageable. But it's just a small part of the modular setup here of the New Mexico Rail Runners from Albuquerque. It's a really impressive set of N-track modules. This is, of course, our old friend 844.
Oh, it is. Look at that.
Which lives right here in Cheyenne. This is one of the typical steam excursions that Union Pacific runs all summer long, being pulled by 844 and their historic passenger cars.
Oh, look at this.
A crop duster. That looks so neat the way they've done that.
Absolutely.
They've got some sort of fantasy stuff here too. I don't think the Rio Grande ever had a paint job that looked quite like that, but if they did, I sure never saw it. But they can run anything on these modules. I mean, everybody just shows up with their modules and their equipment, and
They do their own thing.
they do their own thing. And they've got, this huge main line to run on for a couple of days. So that's the fun
It is.
of being in like an N-Track modular club. Just bring what you got and have fun doing it. Here's 4449. We're going to go see that here in
We
a couple of
are.
weeks.
I'm
Yeah.
really excited about that.
We're actually going to a steam up at a truck museum, but while we're in town, we're going to be visiting 4449 there in Portland, Oregon. That's really fun. This guy used to make a lot more excursions than it currently does, but it just sort of has fallen through the cracks. Engine runs really good. They just don't have a place to run it anymore.
That's sad. I like the color scheme on that.
Isn't that beautiful?
It's beautiful.
Oh, here's another giant modular setup that was part of the Rail Runners display.
Disneyland?
Disneyland. This guy, Doug Gary, decided that he wanted to build Disneyland, and sort of an homage to some other amusement parks as well. It's even bigger than the Cheyenne shops at the other end of the railroad.
Look at all of that.
But he just keeps adding more and more and more stuff to his Disneyland modules. It's just crazy fun. He's even done the old Disneyland Hotel from the 60s.
Oh, he has. Look
Yeah,
at that.
It's torn down. Do you know they're rebuilding it though?
I hope so.
Yeah, they're putting up a new Disneyland Hotel. I don't think it's going to look like the old one here, but that'll be fun. Never did have a chance to stay there, so this will give us a chance to go back and stay at the Disneyland Hotel. Mm-hmm. And it'll still be connected by monorail over
yes.
to the park, and now also connected to downtown Disney. So that'll be just really neat. But check it out. It's everyone's favorite and happiest place on earth.
Even Main Street. Look at that. Oh, my.
And look at the submarine ride. It's pulled by little magnets from underneath. And he's done the exact same thing with the Jungle Cruise. He's got the little Jungle Cruise boats going around being pulled from underneath by a magnetic track system.
Oh, and my favorite ride, the teacups.
Teacups. Oh, and Mickey's Wonder Wheel. We did a whole show on
We did.
the old style rides, the old timey rides at California Adventure. I see where Doug has to use a magnifier.
With lights.
He has lights. With N-scale, that's one of the problems as you get older. You can't even see the models that you're trying to work on. Oh, and here's the old TWA Trip to the Moon. From the 1950s and 60s. They got rid of it. I guess they decided it was passe. And
Oh, gee.
they put in something that looks a lot more NASA. Oh, look, it's John Lasseter running the Jungle Boat Cruise. That's what I'd do. I'd try to figure out some way to get a little N-scale John Lasseter. That's how he started with Disney, was running a Jungle Cruise boat.
Well, how fun.
Ends up being head of Disney Creative. Retired now, sadly.
Oh, look, there's Dumbo.
And Timothy the Mouse. Aw, I liked the old version of Dumbo better than the new one.
Yes.
Now that mine train back there, that's the mine train from Knott's Berry Farm.
Well, how fun.
Isn't that neat? So it isn't all Disneyland stuff. There's some other amusement parks represented here too. And it's fun. People just stand and stare at this thing for hours and hours trying to figure out all the different rides and exactly what amusement parks they have come from, because it isn't all Disneyland. It's all California, but it comes from a whole bunch of different amusement parks. Now here's a club we ran into at the Narrow Gauge Convention in Denver this year, the Nearsighted Narrow Gaugers from Denver.
Did you check out that coaling tower?
Isn't that amazing?
The whole thing. I mean, if you look at the scenery, you swear it's real, not just a model.
They've just nailed it.
Yeah.
They've just nailed it. I mean, it's HON3, but the detail, the level of detail, and just all these little fun scenes like this, you can spend hours just studying this thing. Love the way it runs, love the way it looks. They've just really nailed Colorado Narrow Gauge. These guys are going to be back this year at the Narrow Gauge Convention in September. This year it's in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Wow.
Love to get up there and see
No
that.
kidding.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
And here's the other modular railroad that we talked about earlier from Albuquerque, New Mexico, the New Mexico Narrow Gaugers. We saw them at the Narrow Gauge Convention as well.
This is another group that when you look at their models, it looks like you're really, really there.
I love the little animations and whatnot that they've got. Just, it's a really small railroad. But it's so detailed, you can still spend an enormous amount of time just going from module to module. It sort of reminds me of Steve's railroad.
It does. Check that out.
Yeah, isn't that neat?
Oh, that looks like fun.
It's so cool. Again, it's HON3, and they've got a really interesting system where the trains travel from one end to the other through the modules, and then they've got a hidden return track that just takes everything back down to the other side so that the trains are always moving through on a single track, which gives it a really, really nice narrow gaugey feel. So that's the depot days.
Yes, isn't that fun?
And what a couple of neat little modular railroads that came all the way up from Albuquerque.
Oh, we've got to get down there to theirs.
We've got to.
Yes.
And
we're going to make that left turn here in Salt Lake and take off.
and there's so many other things to see down in New Mexico, so we got to just head down to Albuquerque and
We'll visit my sister.
see
Hi,
what
sister.
sister's down in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
And we can go to the carrot farms and see
And
why
the-
Bugs Bunny was so fascinated with the place in the first.
I was thinking of the Hatch chili, but if you want to have carrots, go for it.
Well, that's what brought Bugs Bunny there. Anyway,
Yeah.
long story. Albuquerque, New Mexico. So we want to get down there.
Yes.
But what a couple of fun little modular railroads. Just really neat. They've both done a heck of a job. And then to come all the way up to Cheyenne from Albuquerque is no mean feat in its own right,
Kidding.
hauling railroads of that size.
Yes.
Well, if you haven't been over to the channel, do pop on over to the channel. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. It helps us keep track of who's who and what's going on, and allows Google to keep track of what we're up to, which
We
is
were
important.
chasing the Google car. We did see it out there.
We did see the Google car at Depot Days, so. But it just helps document what's going on with the channel and everything, and that's all good. So we like to see people subscribe. But more importantly, it'll make you cool because you'll be notified every time we upload a movie, and then you get bragging rights and all kinds of things. Yes, I clicked on the blue button. We may even get shirts made up that says I clicked on the blue
I
button.
clicked that blue button.
So major bragging rights.
Yes.
That. So please subscribe. And the way to do that is with the famous blue button. You ready for it? Zap. Right over there,
Right
blue
there.
button, that round button with the rocket ship in the middle, makes you a subscriber. But we're not sure how you found this movie on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring, and we will see you on Tuesday with the Collector's Attic. See you then.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.